Only one street separates these homes from thousands of acres of damage. And he tells me those testing strips have played a huge role in helping keep fentanyl from killing him and his friends in his neighborhood. Doors will be shut from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. A swearing-in ceremony will be happening in the area being set up behind me for all state constitutional officers. We're here, rain or shine, I guess snow or shine. It is snowing really hard down here, but we got quite a few donations already. This is a nice weatherproof box we got them in. I don't need a license or need to take a boater safety course in order to drive this boat. All I need is a general understanding of navigational rules, be competent enough to drive this boat, and have the proper safety gear. We just got done talking with Lori's uncle, Rex Connor, who says he's relieved to be at this point. But their biggest reminder is don't use any fireworks up here in the foothills because, as you can see, the grasses up here are extremely dry. Exposure to PFAS may lead to increased risk of kidney or testicular cancer, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and preeclampsia for pregnant women. And PFAS are all around us. The concern is that treatment plants don't do anything to remove PFAS from wastewater. Even Nampa, spending millions to upgrade its wastewater plant to meet Class A standards, won't get rid of PFAS. And now there's a plan in total costing about $220 million to take water from that plant in Nampa and put it into the Phyllis irrigation canal.
Definitely water in the Treasure Valley is becoming more of a concern. Having options like this where we can reuse water and keep it up on the bench really helps us make us more drought resistant.
But without removing PFAS chemicals from treatment plant water, they could contaminate the very soil that produces our food.
And they're called by scientists a ticking time bomb in soils because they can just build up and build up and build up because they don't break down. Then they can be released to groundwater. Even if you're not putting that much in every year because they just build up, at some point they can be released in high concentrations that are definitely toxic.
What's more, Nampa has yet to test its wastewater for PFAS that activists say are almost certainly there.
Because it usually is in treated wastewater. The first thing that we need to do is we need to really measure what's in there so we know.
Richard Llewellyn, who has a PhD in biochemistry, says something more must be done beyond Class A standards, and filtering out the PFAS is possible.
It's scientifically possible, it's technologically possible. It takes a lot of money. And if you don't have the economic reasons to do it, it's kind of unlikely that somebody will do that.
But already investing millions in its plan, Nampa City leaders don't see the need to spend millions more.
From what we've seen from looking at research from other states and some of the limits that other states have done, we're in good shape.
The groundwater in Nampa has been tested and PFAS levels were not detectable, but wastewater effluent is a different story.
It's not a mystery. The evidence is there. There have been lawsuits across the nation for PFAS contamination from municipal wastewater discharge, just like what's being proposed here.
The city's response?
Well, there's such small amounts in the wastewater from what we can see. I'm not really concerned about that.
But without specifically testing the discharge from the plant, there's no way of knowing for sure. Until then, Llewellyn and Shelley Brock's group are asking the city to pause its plan to put water from the plant into irrigation canals.
Once it gets into the soil or into our bodies, it's too late.
At this point, there's no state or federal regulations on PFAS. Nampa City leaders say they're watching for any new EPA rules.
When the PFAS limits actually do come around, Nampa is committed to remove whatever needs to be removed in the wastewater.
Currently, with approval from the Department of Water Quality, the city is scheduled to begin discharging the Class A recycled water into the Phyllis Canal in 2025.
Our community is unique in that we have to present a body count in order to get the state to move.
On July 29th, the Yakima County coroner says 76-year-old Florencio Guetta Vargas was found slumped over on his tractor in a Toppenish hop field just after 2 p.m. The coroner, Jim Curtis, says it was about 97 degrees in the field when he was found.
Heat death is entirely preventable. We know that. What it takes to keep people safe in these, high temperatures. It's not that complicated.
His death comes just 2 weeks after the state implemented new emergency heat rules. They require employers to provide shade for their workers and a paid 10-minute rest break to cool down every 2 hours once temperatures hit 100 degrees. Also under the emergency rules, employers need to provide cool water once temperatures hit 89 degrees.
Above 85, above 89, above 95. All of these are different levels of red flags, that are very serious before you get to the arbitrary number of 100 degrees.
Dina Lorraine, a spokesperson for LNI, says they don't anticipate changing the emergency temporary heat rule before September 30th. That's when the heat rules are no longer in effect for the year. As for LNI's investigation, she says it'll include interviews of the employer and employees, saying they'll look through their safety plans and make sure they're following all of the rules for health and safety.
Were there some things that they could have done with this employee? Better training, a better communication, whatever it is, we may find that they did everything perfectly, and it's just an unfortunate circumstance.
The UFW's Elizabeth Strader says Guaita Vargas leaves behind a wife and 6 daughters who still have so many questions.
His daughter had shared with us that, she really does not know what it's going to take for farm workers to not be seen as disposable.
In the past, the Office of Performance Evaluation has uncovered major failures in state government that in turn helped lawmakers write better policy. The Office of Performance Evaluation, OPE, is an independent, nonpartisan fact-finding organization that writes reports highlighting certain shortfalls in state government. It's been doing deep dive studies for the last 3 decades.
The studies that have come out of this have impacted enormously how we go about funding education, how we go about addressing and overseeing our healthcare system, transportation, foster care. It's a very impactful committee in a really good way. They've gotten really good things done, and they're on the chopping block right now.
Most recently, it uncovered a shortfall in emergency medical services in Idaho and determined there's roughly $870 million worth of school building repairs needed across the state. The OPE undertakes about 3 evaluations per year. Currently, the Joint Oversight Committee, JLOC, the only committee in the legislature that's evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, oversees the OPE.
You don't even think when you're in there who's a Democrat and who's a Republican on the committee. We're just in there thinking about, what studies are really needed to expose things we need to know to make better policy.
Any lawmaker can request a study to JLOC, which then votes on what projects OPE will work on. Representative Megan Blanksma wants to throw out JLOC altogether and give oversight to the Legislative Council, which currently has a Republican majority.
What I have done is streamline the process. So instead of having an extra committee that we have to go through to get OPE reports, it is now controlled by elected folks of each body.
She argues the Legislative Council is more reflective of the entire legislature and says Democrats are overrepresented on JLOC.
People do not need to lose sleep about whether Republicans have enough control in Idaho. Let's put it that way. They control every statewide office, every federal office.
When asked what problem this bill was trying to fix,
I think that a lot of us have strong opinions about wanting to streamline things. And this is just one more committee that has to be staffed to do one more job.
Rubel worries the bill will make the OPE and what it does unrecognizable. Blanksma argues they aren't trying to do anything nefarious with this bill. OPE's director weighed in today. Also, he says the best way to minimize politics is to have the bipartisan JLOC oversee the office. Today's vote was along party lines. The bill now heads to the full House.
There's a lot of increases this year, and makes it kind of difficult to pencil it out.
For Galen Lee of New Plymouth, the farming itself is going well. Yields are looking okay, but finances not so much. His fuel costs are way up.
Farmers buy fuel, hundreds of thousands of gallons at a time, and so it's a big hit.
It does. It all starts at fuel.
Matt Dorsey, a 5th-generation farmer, an organic one now, in Caldwell, estimates he uses about 5 times as much fuel as a non-organic grower.
$1 per gallon before, so $1 it'd be $10,000. Now it's $50,000 to fill up that tank.
Then there's fertilizer, up anywhere from 200 to 600%.
Urea was under $150 to $200 a ton, and now it's over $1,000.
Lee and Dorsey try to make adjustments without sacrificing crop quality or yield. For example, Galen chose to cut back about 40% on the amount of fertilizer he put on his alfalfa field here, but still spent about twice as much on fertilizer compared to last year.
It's not a long-term plan. Yeah, we can kind of get by one year with a little bit less fertilizer because there's enough nutrients in the soil that we're building up on.
But he can't cut back fertilizer on all his crops. So he's trying to find other ways to save.
You just try to make other things efficient. If you're using some bigger equipment or maybe a few less trips through the field.
Farmers are price takers, not price makers. They don't have the luxury of passing their costs to consumers.
We're reliant on the marketplace. Luckily, a lot of commodity prices are higher this year than they have been historically, which helps.
But those commodity prices haven't increased enough to cover his higher costs.
I'm hoping to have a little bit of a profit. I mean, that's what keeps us going and keeps us able to provide food.
Dorsey worries about whether the family farm can still make a profit. He and his kids might have to find other jobs to keep the family and his farm afloat.
Maybe the farm has to take a back seat, not only for me, but for my kids that want to do it too. You know, if I stop, then, you know, what does that look like for them?
He says others may need to stop farming. Even struggling, both Lee and Dorsey are still optimistic.
Lots of things have gone up, and we're going to still keep providing that good quality food.
It's a good life, and we'll just keep adjusting and keep working.
It's not endless.
We rely on wells.
The groundwater makes up about 95% of our drinking water.
Water from underground aquifers that are recharged by irrigation. But as agriculture is pushed aside by development, less water seeps into those aquifers.
Even if we connect to city water down the road, what's going to happen? I mean, maybe they're going to not have water in the future for even the city, or they're going to have to put controls on that.
Steve and Kara Netto's 100-foot deep well near Maple Grove and Highlander dried up for the first time in April, and it stayed that way for over a month.
Anybody that goes without water realizes how much water you use on a daily basis and how critical it is to everything that you do.
Eventually, the well started producing again, and they were able to irrigate their pasture.
Everybody here in the neighborhood saw what was happening to us, so yeah, they're kind of nervous.
And it's not just one neighborhood.
It's square miles worth of residential development.
What was once farmland?
Well, all around us was corn and alfalfa when we came in, all around the subdivision on both sides.
Is now subdivisions. Take a look at just how much development has happened over the last several decades.
The unlimited growth, that's the mentality of a cancer cell, and that's not what we should be looking at.
According to data tracked by Water Resources, the groundwater levels are falling about a foot per year in southwest Boise.
If you only have 10 feet of water in your well left, you have 10 to 20 years of life of your well left if the rates continue at the rate they are.
Dennis Owsley with Water Resources says folks can drill deeper, an expensive proposition, or they can connect to the city water, also an expensive proposition. Another option, says Steve Netto, smarter development.
We should be asking our politicians and so forth about what their plans are for the future of Boise besides just putting more homes and homes and homes and homes. What are they going to do to preserve and protect our water resources?
Owsley says for now there should be enough water, but there's no guarantees.
At this current state, I'd say we're okay. Knock on wood that it continues that way. It is kind of scary to see the growth in this valley happening so quickly. But there's been some studies done that have forecasted that we can handle the growth. The water supplies can handle the growth as long as it's properly developed and planned out.
Other neighbors in southwest Boise say they're hoping to push local leaders to keep some of the former ag land from becoming development. Owsley says more green open spaces would certainly help. He says counties and cities could also put limitations on the drilling of new individual wells. In the state house, tensions are rising among Republican lawmakers, leadership, and the party itself.
I don't like the direction our party's going.
Just take a look at what happened at the state capitol today. The bill co-sponsored by Senator Mark Harris and House Caucus Chair Representative Dustin Manwaring would consolidate the presidential primary on the second Tuesday in March with the May primary election.
138 will help clear up voter confusion, voter fatigue, and help increase voter turnout in May. Presidential elections usually generate more voter turnout, voter excitement. And what we've seen is less excitement, less voter turnout in the more important May primary.
Plus, they estimate the move would save taxpayers between $2.5 and $2.7 million. The bill got little pushback when it cleared the House with just 6 no votes a week ago. But last night, the Idaho Republican Party chair, Dorothy Moon, sent out a call to action urging people to testify against the bill and to reach out to leadership and the Secretary of State to voice their opposition. Moon, however, was not at the hearing as she's apparently out of the state. Kira Turnbow spoke on her behalf.
As a private party, not having our consent interferes with our right to freely associate and hold the primary.
The discussion highlighting differences between Republican lawmakers and the party itself.
Turnbow talked about the right of free association. And what I see our party doing is trying to eliminate the right of free association so that someone like myself that people in this building have labeled as the devil's advocate, the devil incarnate, would not be considered a Republican.
The whole point of doing this early is to increase Idaho's presence on the national landscape, to get us part of Super Tuesday, to get people excited, to get candidates here. That is not, that is including people. That is making Idaho a bigger presence. That's not what you're saying. I think you're talking along a different topic.
This all under the backdrop of Republican Representative Judy Boyle abruptly resigning from House Education Committee, as reported by Idaho Ed News, after the committee killed a bill that would have added civil liability to libraries for distributing so-called harmful material to minors.
I am appalled that there's this kind of discussion. There is nothing wrong with this bill.
Boyle confirming to me today that she handed her letter of resignation on the Education Committee into Speaker Mike Moyle this morning. She says it's a relief to be off that committee.
Yeah, in the past there's been stuff like this. You know, things get tense sometimes this time of year and you know, feelings flare.
The next day, with Boyle off the committee, it voted narrowly against printing a piece of ESA legislation from Representative Lance Clough. 2 other ESA proposals originally on the agenda were pulled. 2 members voiced their hesitation to print Clough's proposal because they worried it wouldn't come back to their committee for a hearing, but would end up in a different committee.
Even though I think we probably should print it, and then I could have a chance to vote no on the hearing. But to be honest with you, the intrigue that happened this morning, I don't think we're going to get it back, folks, if we vote yes.
If we see those other bills in other committees, that is an extreme affront to me and for the work that we're doing on this committee.
So was their concern valid?
Representative Clough's RS dealt with education statutes. There's other ones that deal with tax credits or savings accounts that are tax related. So the one that Clough has absolutely would go back to education. So it depends on the sections they're at. We sit down and look at the code and we decide where they go from there. I think they should probably ask the speaker, he could have relayed their concerns because that's where it would have been.
Back to the presidential primary bill, Senate Majority Leader Kelly Anthon and Senator Ben Taves voted in a failed bid to kill the legislation.